Good day, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Briareo Skarensky and welcome to the review of Samurai Maiden. You know, I miss Senran Kagura. I really do. Simple yet effective combat mechanics, several over-the-top characters with different fighting styles to choose from coming together to create a mindless button masher easy to enjoy. And the fan service, of course. Many games tried to recreate the formula or even start a new franchise, but not many succeeded, whether speaking about game quality or just being remembered by fans. Now Shade throw their hat into the ring with the help of D3 publisher. Shade are a small studio similar to Tamsoft, the main developers of Senran Kagura, as the quality of their titles vary greatly depending on the director and/or publisher involved in the project. The first two Bullet Girls are flawed but fun, Kandagawa Jet Girls is meh, Bullet Girls Fantasia is mediocre, and Gangan Pixies is still the worst game I played on the Vita. I will concede the Switch version is better, but it's still a terrible game. So, yeah, the situation doesn't bode well. The story is simple. Our resident protagonist, Tsumugi, gets isekai'd into an alternate version of the Sengoku period. There she meets three shinobis, Iyo, Agane and Komimi. Together they will journey to hell and back, literally and figuratively, to defeat the Demon Lord. Should they fail, the world will end. And this being the Sengoku era, Oda Nobunaga is there as well. Of all the characters, only Tsumugi is playable. One shinobi is always on the field with her, she can be hit by enemy attacks but she will not retaliate unless you trigger a special attack or action. Tsumugi will get other weapons as the game goes on, but there is no tangible difference between the two weapon classes, katana and odachi. The moveset is the same, maybe the startup and recovery times vary a bit, but not drastically enough to change how you play. All new weapons also start at level 1. This is a problem because not only weapon level influences damage, but also Tsumugi's health, and you need to make every single HP count. You have light attacks, heavy attacks, double jumps, dodges and air attacks, everything you'd expect from a third-person action game. Tsumugi starts off with a barebone moveset, so barebone that you have to unlock both ground and air fast wake-ups. These are unlocked within the first 2 hours, and there are more advanced techniques to learn, like a charged heavy attack or a parry, but you'll never make use of them due to how the game is structured. Most missions have the party kill groups of skeletons, slimes and onis until they reach the local boss, a bigger skeleton slime or oni. All maps have treasure chests hidden around to unlock new items, increase their count, or unlock one of the many illustrations in the gallery. Mobs are mostly harmless and can take quite the punishment for the kind of obstacle they are. There is a lock-on, but it doesn't switch automatically when your target is down, and it's one of those lock-ons that always goes on the least threatening enemy and not onto, for example, the boss in the center of the screen. The lock-on also disengages when it feels like it. If battles become too chaotic, and they often do, the lock-on disengages driving the camera into the ground, with obvious results. And then you frantically move the camera around searching for your previous target, and some bosses can move fast, resulting in a lot of cheap hits from them or the mob enemies they summoned. The camera is a huge problem, failing constantly to give players a good reading of the situation, clipping into terrain features and larger enemies. Effects from your own attacks can completely mask what's going on, and when this happens the frame rate dips into single digits on a standard PS4. I really don't want to know the situation on Switch or low-end PCs. Not seeing what's going on makes you want to run away, but you don't know where, and enemies really like to mob onto Tsumugi, so the best way to get out of these situations is relying on special attacks. Or better, one special attack. Each shinobi has her own special attack, linked to an element, fire for Iyo, thunder for Agane and ice for Komimi. The game never outright tells you if there is an elemental triangle, but there are status afflictions, though I think all of them lead to a constant damage over a short period of time and nothing more. Thunder won't make enemies dizzy, nor ice will freeze them into place. Special attacks have their own area of effect, and Komimi's special is the most useful. It comes out fast, hits in a round area, and sends smaller opponents flying. You'll quickly start abusing this because it feels like the only reliable special among the three. Io attacks directly whatever you're locking on, her kunais are stopped by other enemies or terrain features. Hagane's is the most difficult to use. Shinobis do not take damage, but they can be hit, and being hit stops whatever they are doing. Upon triggering her special, Hagane first teleports where Tsumugi is, fires her mechanical arm, the arm reaches maximum extension, and then she applies electricity, dealing damage to all enemies near a very narrow line. Her attack can be interrupted at any time, and because there is always a short delay between your input and her appearing near Tsumugi, you never quite get the positioning you want. This also means that enemy attacks could stop her before any damage has been dealt, making you waste special meter. Io and Komimi share the same problem, but their attacks are one-shots and much faster in execution. About halfway through Samurai Maiden, Tsumugi gets the ability to perform a devoted heart with the other girls. The cutscene triggered changes based on the relationship level, and the result is the shinobi imbuing Tsumugi's weapon with one element, increasing damage. I think. The damage number on screen are indeed higher, but not too much, and attacks don't feel all that more powerful. But I'll take anything to kill enemies faster.
Io-chan.
The shinobis also have a unique special ability. Hagane uses her mechanical arm to drag distant objects in and swing across terrain during platforming sections. Io drops bombs, mines, decoys and healing pots on the battlefield. Komimi picks up and throws objects around. Io's action sounds cool, but it's badly implemented. To trigger an item you don't simply press R2, you hold it down. This brings up a crosshair used to point where the item will go, with no pause or slowdowns. After that, Io gets the item, trots to the designated location and drops it. You can get interrupted at any time, which might result in the item being dropped somewhere else or the action being cancelled entirely. Expect at least 5 seconds between releasing R2 and the item appearing somewhere, and of course the situation might have drastically changed during that time. Healing pots last for a while and have an area of effect, but I'd have preferred something a bit more immediate, as your life can be drained quite swiftly when you don't see what's going on due to the bad camera. And decoys don't work on bosses, like parries. Well, parries do block some boss attacks, but Tsumugi recoils while bosses don't. Bombs dropped by Io or lying around could theoretically be thrown by Komimi, but again you need to aim those, and bombs can explode in your face, so it's best to leave them alone. The girls will clash with 2 NPCs in 1-on-1, or better 4-on-1 duels during their journey, offering some respite from the usual hordes of copy-pasted enemies and bosses. These duels aren't particularly difficult once you learn attack patterns, and these patterns are repeated in all duels, with some minor passive damage additions here and there. Curiously enough, these duels are one of Samurai Maiden's highlights, as they take place in flat, spacious and obstacle-free arenas, unlike the rest of the game where you are fighting the camera more than the enemies. But in the last couple of missions the game throws in 2 normal bosses together in smallish arenas with tall walls, crumbling floor and maybe traps around the perimeter. These encounters are beyond maddening. You fight the bosses, you fight the mobs they spawn with, you fight the mobs the bosses summon once in a while, you fight dodge rolls that get stuck into invisible hitboxes, you fight the target lock that selects enemies at random, you fight the target lock that disengages just because, you fight the camera that doesn't let you keep track of your surroundings, you fight your own attacks that hide what's going on, you fight the frame rate hitting single digits. It's absurd how broken and irritating Samurai Maiden gets into those fights, as the tools you are given either feel ineffective or completely useless. Developers simply didn't polish the game mechanics enough to make good use of the ideas they had, creating this huge mess that is either boring or irritating to play, depending on what you are doing. One last mechanic is the bond between Tsumugi and the three shinobis. You deepen it by killing enemies while one of the three is with you, and this unlocks either new techniques for Tsumugi or bubble encounters. Bubble encounters are simple missions, usually centered around platforming and simple puzzle solving that are most relevant for their cutscenes, as they explore the relationship between the characters. Technically, Shade appear to be still developing games for the Vita. Character models look fine, but environments are lifeless with bland textures, no lighting, and their defining feature being stereotypical snow or fire settings. Some locales are vast, but completely empty. Treasure chests are often located in cliffs and don't require much skill to reach. Some enemies like skeletons and slimes seem taken straight from Bullet Girl's Fantasia. Loading times on a standard PS4 are terribly long, and adding insult to injury, cutscenes have loading times in between. You know, cutscenes with two characters model repeating the same 3-4 animations over and over, one static background, a bunch of text and spoken lines. Well, apparently modern video gaming systems aren't able to stream text or audio files. Let me digress a bit. This is why Unity is seen as the cheap engine. Even professional studios don't care about optimizing their games, thinking the engine will take care of everything for them. Well, no. You need to optimize the engine, otherwise a game with graphics akin of a Vita will have frame drops on a PS4. On the plus side, there is an extensive gallery with illustrations, sketches and storyboards to unlock, though you'll need to go through the games 3 times at different difficulty levels to unlock everything. And it won't be a review of Samurai Maiden without mentioning the English translation. Infamous is now the generation talk. In Japanese, Tsumugi explains she's a JK, or Joshi Kousei, a high school student, and there are other school grades. The English translation goes for Generation Z, Millennials and Boomers. Other examples include Komimi in the English translation saying "I'm the descendant of Tamamo no Mae, the king of beasts", while the Japanese voice says Dai Omnyoji, Great Exorcist or, well, Great Omnyoji. You'd think the rest of the translation wouldn't use these terms, but in fact pretty much every dialogue with Komimi brings up the term Omnyoji in the English text, so I don't really know what went on during the translation.
わらわは神獣たる賜物前の末裔大陰陽師であるぞ
Samurai Maiden is a total letdown, it's either boring or annoying to play, and because fanservice is apparently the worst thing that can happen to a video game nowadays, you don't even have that to carry you through it, like you had in Bullet Girls. The execution reminds me a lot of Gangan Pixies. A decently entertaining idea squandered on unpolished or downright broken mechanics, coupled with a mediocre technical side. Unfortunately, the search for a successor to Senran Kagura still continues. I hope you have enjoyed this review and you'll stick around for more. Briario Skarensky, over and out.
チェックワンツーブレイクオブレイクダウン What's up 地味毛量ネバノース疾風信頼ましてやばいいざ上等ネバ